Usually, when we think about a healthy heart, there's this underlying expectation of just, perfect mechanical precision.
Right, like a perfectly tuned machine.
Exactly, like a beautifully engineered Swiss watch or something. You picture a heart rate of, say, 60 beats per minute, and you instinctively just imagine a grandfather clock.
Yeah, tick, tick, tick.
Right, exactly. 1 second passes, tick. Another second, tick. We have this really deep-seated assumption that absolute unvarying regularity is like the ultimate sign of a machine that is working flawlessly.
It is a very comforting idea, honestly. I mean, we really like the concept of biological rhythm being as predictable as a metronome.
It makes sense. It feels safe.
Yeah, it makes us feel like our bodies are stable, ordered, and uh, entirely under our conscious control. But when you look at the raw data of human physiology, you realize that perfect regularity is actually a biological paradox.
A paradox.
Yeah. The steady heartbeat is a complete illusion. And, I mean, more than that, if your heart actually beat like a perfect clock, it would be a massive red flag for your health.
Oh, wow. Well, welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today, we are taking a really fascinating journey into the hidden rhythms of your own chest.
It's a journey that totally flips what we thought we knew upside down.
It really does. So, human biologist Gary Brecka has been sounding the alarm on a specific metric that completely shatters this whole grandfather clock illusion. And we are going to explore exactly why we've had this backwards for so long.
We really have.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to figure out why a metric called heart rate variability, or HRV, is considered the ultimate non-invasive biomarker for stress.
For recovery, too.
Right, recovery and just your overall health in general. And more importantly, we're going to break down the exact biological levers that you, sitting right there listening to this, can pull to manipulate this invisible metric and upgrade your daily life.
Yeah, because it requires a profound shift in perspective. Brecka points out a misconception that, honestly, almost everyone shares.
Probably because of how we were taught basic biology in high school, or
Exactly. We hear 60 beats per minute, and we do the basic math in our heads. 60 beats divided by 60 seconds equals.
exactly one beat every single second.
Right. But the reality of heart rate variability is right there in the name. It is all about the precise, ever-changing intervals between the beats.
Between them. So we're looking at the gaps.
Yes, we were talking about fractions of a millisecond. One beat might happen after, say, 0.85 seconds,
Okay.
and then the next might take 1.12 seconds, and the next might be 0.94 seconds. It's a constantly shifting, highly dynamic interval.
So wait, we're completely ignoring the total number of beats per minute. We're just putting a microscopic lens on the white space between the beats.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Heart rate variability is literally the measurement of that microfluctuation.
Okay, so what does that fluctuation actually tell us?
Well, what the clinical data tells us is that a higher HRV, meaning a much greater variation in the time between your heartbeats, indicates a highly functioning, adaptable nervous system.
So more variation is good.
Very good. Conversely, a low HRV, where your heart is beating with that rigid, clock-like precision we used to idealize,
The grandfather clock.
right, that signifies stress, fatigue, illness,
Yeah.
or just a massive systemic overload.
Okay, to help you visualize this, think of it this way. A healthy heart is not a rigid mechanical metronome ticking perfectly on the beat. A healthy heart is much more like a live jazz drummer.
Oh, I love that comparison.
Right. The drummer is constantly listening, adjusting, swinging to the rhythm of the environment. They play slightly behind the beat when the mood is relaxed, and they snap right back onto it when the energy of the room spikes.
Yeah, the jazz drummer is reacting to the room.
Exactly. The metronome just blindly ticks until its spring winds down, completely unaware of its surroundings.
That is a phenomenal analogy because
Yeah.
the human body absolutely requires constant real-time micro-adjustments just to keep you alive. What's fascinating here is the underlying biological necessity of why a steady heart is actually a warning sign.
Right, because our environment isn't steady.
Exactly. The environment around you and inside of you is never static. I mean, your core temperature is fluctuating by fractions of a degree right now.
Sure.
Your digestion is actively processing macronutrients. You are standing up against gravity, then you're sitting down. You are inhaling oxygen, you are exhaling carbon dioxide.
It's just constant chaos in there.
It really is. Your individual cells are demanding different levels of oxygen from millisecond to millisecond. So if your heart is too rigid, if there is very low variability between the beats, It means your body is locked into a state of stress.
Locked in. Wow.
Yeah, it means the system has entirely lost its flexibility. It cannot adapt to external changes. It is just bracing for impact.
Bracing for impact. So if your heart is just rigidly pounding away, completely ignoring all the subtle signals from the rest of the body, it's like a driver gripping the steering wheel so hard their knuckles are white.
Yes, that's exactly what it's like.
They're so tense that they are completely unable to swerve if something suddenly jumps into the road. But if the heart is the engine taking orders to speed up, slow down, or vary its rhythm, we need to look at the control room that is actually issuing those orders.
So we do. We have to look at the autonomic nervous system.
The autonomic nervous system.
Yeah, the ANS. It's the unseen manager of your entire physiological existence. This system controls literally all of your involuntary functions.
The things you never have to consciously think about.
Right. Your heart rate, your respiratory rate, the dilation of your blood vessels, the secretion of enzymes in your gut, all of it. And this system is fundamentally split into two competing branches.
The tug of war.
Exactly. They are engaged in a perpetual, lifelong tug of war.
And these are the sympathetic and the parasympathetic branches, right? And for anyone listening who follows health and performance optimization, you probably already know the basics here.
Yeah, it's talked about a lot.
Sympathetic is the fight or flight accelerator, and parasympathetic is the rest and digest brake pedal.
Right. But what Brecka's analysis really focuses on is not just defining these two states, but exploring the delicate balance between them. I mean, the sympathetic nervous system is your biological alarm bell.
Right.
When it activates, it floods your system with catecholamines like adrenaline and noradrenaline. It massively accelerates your heart rate and actually diverts blood away from your digestive tract out to your skeletal muscles.
Getting you ready to run or fight.
Exactly. Then, on the other side of the rope, the parasympathetic nervous system relies heavily on a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine to slow the heart down, promote recovery, rebuild tissue, and just handle the long-term maintenance of the organism.
Okay, and HRV is essentially the real-time scoreboard of this biological tug of war.
It is the most accurate scoreboard we have. In fact, there was a landmark study published in the journal Frontiers in Neuroscience that Brecka highlights, which strictly positions HRV as a critical, non-invasive biomarker of this specific autonomic function.
So it's basically a window into that balance.
It's a direct window into the balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic states. The higher your HRV, the more dominance the parasympathetic system has at rest.
Which is what we want.
Absolutely. It is robustly linked to better cardiovascular health, much improved emotional regulation, and a significantly greater resilience to physiological stress overall.
Wait, let me see if I have this right, because I think it's really easy to misinterpret the goal here.
Yeah, go ahead.
If the sympathetic system is the fight or flight response, and it is responsible for stress, panic, and lowering our HRV, shouldn't our ultimate objective just be to turn that sympathetic system off completely?
Oh, I see where you're going.
Like, wouldn't we just want to live 100% of the time in the parasympathetic rest and digest state, just totally zen all the time?
It is a very logical assumption.
Yeah.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture of human survival, turning off the sympathetic system would be a total biological disaster.
Really? A disaster.
Oh, absolutely. The goal is absolutely not the elimination of stress. Think about it. Without sympathetic drive, you literally wouldn't have the biological motivation to get out of bed in the morning. You wouldn't be able to exercise. If a car suddenly swerved into your lane on the highway, you wouldn't have the instantaneous reflexes, the pupil dilation, and the massive spike in alertness required to turn the wheel and avoid a fatal crash.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
The sympathetic system is profoundly life-saving.
So it's not the villain of the story?
Not at all. The true villain is getting stuck there.
Getting stuck.
Yeah. The goal of a highly tuned autonomic nervous system is resilience. Resilience is the ability to face a massive threat, have your sympathetic system spike your heart rate and save your life, and then, crucially, immediately return to a calm baseline once the threat has passed.
So it's the bounce back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A highly adaptable system, one with high HRV, allows the parasympathetic system to step right back in and say, okay, the danger is gone,
Yeah.
the threat is neutralized, let's repair the damage. But low HRV, that means your foot is permanently stuck on the gas pedal and the brake line has been completely severed.
You are just burning out the engine while idling in the driveway.
Yes, that's exactly it.
So if this invisible high-stakes tug of war is happening inside of us right now, every single second of the day, how do we actually see it?
That's the big question.
Right. How do we read the scoreboard? Because Brecka gets into the technology side of this, which is fascinating. Because not too long ago, this was data you could only get if you were literally admitted to a hospital.
Historically, yes, absolutely. To get a true clinical measurement of the exact milliseconds between heartbeats, you needed an electrocardiogram, an ECG.
Right. A whole machine.
Yeah, you would be in a clinical setting, covered in sticky silver chloride electrodes, measuring the precise electrical impulses generated by the sinoatrial node of your heart.
Not exactly something you can do at home on a Tuesday.
No, not at all. But the technological revolution we are living through right now is that this measurement capability has been entirely miniaturized and democratized. Consumer-grade wearables have completely changed the landscape of preventative health.
So we are talking about devices like the Whoop strap, the Oura Ring, and the Apple Watch.
Exactly.
But wait, they don't use sticky electrical nodes? They use light. How does a flashing green light on the back of a watch actually measure the electrical variance of my nervous system?
It is an incredible piece of physics, honestly. Most consumer wearables utilize PPG sensors. That stands for photoplethysmography.
Say that 3 times fast.
I know, right? But if you look at the back of your smartwatch and see those flashing green or red LEDs, that is the PPG sensor at work. It shines specific wavelengths of light right through your epidermis and into the microvascular bed of your tissue.
Okay, so it's looking at the blood.
Yes, blood is red because it reflects red light and absorbs green light. So when your heart beats, there's a microsurge of blood volume in your wrist or your finger.
A tiny little pulse.
Exactly. And during that surge, more green light is absorbed by the hemoglobin and less light bounces back to the photodetector on the watch. Between beats, when the blood volume drops, more light reflects back.
So the watch isn't feeling your pulse mechanically. It is literally watching the shadows of your blood volume expanding and contracting hundreds of times a minute.
Exactly, it's optical. By tracking the exact millisecond the blood pulses through those microvessels, incredibly sophisticated algorithms can calculate the time variation between the beats.
That's wild.
It is. Now, the main challenge with PPG is signal noise. If you swing your arm or if the watch is loose, the ambient light and movement can corrupt the data pretty easily.
Oh, because it shifts the sensor.
Right. This is why the algorithms have to be so incredibly advanced, literally filtering out the mechanical noise of your movement to isolate the pure cardiovascular signal and ultimately calculating your HRV score.
So what does this all mean for the person listening to this right now who just, say, strapped on one of these devices for the very first time? They open the app on their phone, they look at their HRV score, and they see a number. Maybe it's 35 milliseconds, maybe it's 90 milliseconds. How do they know if they are failing or succeeding at this biological tug of war?
The most critical piece of advice from Brecka's analysis regarding measurement is that HRV is fiercely individualized.
So you can't just look up a chart of good numbers.
Absolutely not. Your absolute number does not matter nearly as much as your personal baseline. You cannot, under any circumstances, compare your HRV to a friend's HRV.
Really? Not even if they're the same age?
No, because a 20-year-old elite athlete might have a baseline of 120. A completely healthy 50-year-old might have a baseline of 40. The absolute number is heavily influenced by genetics, age, and even just the physical size of your heart.
Okay, it's like trying to judge the health of the entire stock market by looking at one random millisecond of trading on a Tuesday afternoon during a momentary dip.
That's a great way to put it.
The isolated data point is totally useless. Context is king. You have to look at the trend over time under the exact same conditions to really know if the market is actually growing or crashing.
That is a much, much better way to think about it. And the same strict rules apply to measuring heart rate variability. The clinical data insists that you have to measure it under consistent physiological conditions.
Right, you can't measure it after a sprint one day and after a nap the next.
Exactly. This is why the most valuable HRV data is usually gathered passively while you're in deep sleep or taken first thing in the morning the moment you wake up, before you even get out of bed.
Oh, before you even stand up.
Yes. You have to capture the data before the sympathetic nervous system has to deal with the stress of gravity.
Just standing up is a stressor.
It requires a massive shift in blood pressure, yes, or digesting breakfast, or reading a stressful email, or processing caffeine. All of those tank the number. You need to establish a stable, uncorrupted baseline over a period of at least 2 to 3 weeks.
And once you have that baseline established, you can really start to see the hidden story your body is trying to tell you. But Brecka warns that we have to be incredibly careful about how we interpret the drops in that baseline.
We do.
Because a drop isn't always a bad thing, right?
Correct, because not all stress is pathological stress.
Yeah.
Brecka explicitly points out that a sudden, sharp drop in HRV immediately following an intense workout is actually a completely normal, highly healthy physiological response.
So seeing a low number after the gym shouldn't freak you out.
Not at all. When you lift heavy weights or do high-intensity interval training or go for a long run, you are intentionally applying acute mechanical stress to the body. You are creating microtears in your muscle fibers. You are heavily taxing the cardiovascular system.
You're doing damage on purpose?
Exactly.
Okay.
The body responds to this by ramping up sympathetic drive to survive the workout. Of course, your sympathetic nervous system is dominating, and of course, your HRV will plummet in the hours afterward.
Right.
The body's just saying, we have sustained damage, we are vulnerable, we need time and resources to recover.
So a temporary dip is just the necessary cost of doing business if you're trying to force your body to adapt and get stronger?
Precisely. The real biological danger lies in a chronically low HRV over a sustained period of time.
Chronically low.
Yeah, if your HRV stays suppressed below your baseline for days or weeks on end, that is the blaring alarm bell. It means you are overtraining and failing to recover, or your immune system is quietly fighting off an underlying infection before you even feel the symptoms.
Oh, wow. It can predict sickness.
Frequently, yes. Or it could mean you are suffocating under chronic psychological stress. The parasympathetic system is being completely overpowered, and your body is literally losing its fundamental ability to heal.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the things that cause that number to absolutely tank. Because once you have your baseline, you become hyper-aware of the lifestyle choices that destroy your HRV.
You really do.
Brecka outlines a comprehensive list of what we might call the vitals killers.
And it is a list that forces us to look really closely at our daily habits. Age is a natural, unavoidable factor, obviously.
Right. Can't fight time.
No, our autonomic flexibility simply tends to decrease as our cellular machinery ages. But the controllable factors are where the real impact lies.
Okay, what are the big ones?
Chronic stress, dehydration, poor nutrition, alcohol consumption, substance abuse, and chronic systemic illnesses like untreated diabetes and heart disease. All of these dramatically and measurably lower your heart rate variability.
I look at these factors like background apps secretly draining your smartphone battery.
Oh, that's a perfect way to visualize it.
You know, you might be walking around at 2 p.m. thinking your internal battery is at 80%. You feel fine. You don't realize you are mildly dehydrated because you've only had coffee all day.
Right.
You don't realize that the passive-aggressive email you got from your boss yesterday is still looping in your subconscious, triggering like microdoses of cortisol. But all those invisible background apps are running. They are burning computational power. They are burning your biological battery. And your HRV is the only screen that actually shows you how fast you are draining.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture of human evolution, modern life is uniquely engineered to keep those background apps running 24 hours a day.
Yeah, it really is.
From an evolutionary standpoint, human beings were perfectly designed to handle acute, severe, short-term stress. You encounter a predator on the savannah, your sympathetic system spikes instantly, your pupils dilate, blood rushes to your legs, and you run for your life.
Pure survival.
Right. 5 minutes later, you're either safe in a tree or you are dead. Either way, the acute stress is over.
The lion doesn't send you a follow-up email at 11:30 p.m. asking for a status report.
Exactly. The
Yes.
threat resolves. But today, we are rarely chased by actual predators. Instead, our nervous systems are subjected to a constant, low-grade, relentless stream of psychological and environmental stressors.
Like what?
Sitting in gridlock traffic, the barrage of push notifications on our phones, financial anxiety, diets high in processed sugars that cause constant glycemic spikes.
And the body treats all of that like a lion.
Yes. The sympathetic nervous system cannot distinguish between a physical threat to your biological life and a psychological threat to your ego. It responds the exact same way. It chronically suppresses the parasympathetic system. So we live in a perpetual state of fight or flight, and our HRV remains permanently suppressed.
I want to hone in on one specific vitals killer mentioned in Brecka's analysis because the data he presents does not mince words here.
No, it doesn't.
He designates alcohol as a strict no-fly zone. The guidance is that you need to keep alcohol intake as close to zero as possible. That is a pretty hardline stance for a culture that, normalizes a glass of wine with dinner every single night.
It is a very hardline stance, but it is entirely backed by the physiological mechanics of how the human body processes alcohol.
Hmm.
When you consume alcohol, you might feel psychologically relaxed. You might feel like it is taking the edge off your workday stress.
Sure, people say they need a drink to wind down.
Right. But biologically, at a cellular level, alcohol is recognized as a toxin.
So the brain might feel relaxed, but the liver is sounding the alarm.
Precisely. Let's trace the biology of what happens.
Mhm.
Let's say you have 2 glasses of wine in the evening to unwind, and then you go to sleep. You might fall asleep very quickly because alcohol acts as a central nervous system depressant.
You just pass right out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but your autonomic nervous system is in a state of absolute physiological panic. While you are unconscious, your liver is working in massive overdrive to metabolize the ethanol into acetaldehyde,
Which is bad.
which is actually a more toxic byproduct, before eventually breaking it down into acetate.
Oh, wow. So what does that do to the heart rate while you're sleeping?
It forces the heart to work exponentially harder. Your resting heart rate remains significantly elevated throughout the entire night because the cardiovascular system is pumping blood rapidly to the liver and kidneys just to clear the poison. Furthermore, your core body temperature rises. Because the system is working so incredibly hard to clear the alcohol, the parasympathetic nervous system is completely blocked from taking over.
So you are physically unconscious, your eyes are closed, but you are not actually resting.
You are absolutely not resting. Your body is essentially running a low-grade marathon while you are asleep. Because of this sympathetic overdrive, the restorative phases of sleep, particularly rapid eye movement or REM sleep, and the deep, slow-wave sleep where tissue repair actually happens, are severely disrupted.
So it destroys the quality of the sleep.
Completely. You wake up the next morning, and even if you were in bed for 8 solid hours, your HRV will have plummeted. The wearable data will clearly show a flatlined HRV and a highly elevated resting heart rate.
Just from a couple of glasses of wine.
Yes, your body spent the entire night in a state of sympathetic stress fighting the toxin. This is why the clinical data is so adamant about reducing alcohol to near zero if you are serious about autonomic health. The physiological cost to your recovery is just incredibly high.
That is a brutal reality check for the whole glass of wine to unwind routine. I mean, the optical sensor on your wrist does not care about your feelings. It only cares about the biology.
Exactly. It's objective truth.
But the good news is Brecka doesn't just give us a list of things that destroy us. The data provides a massive, actionable toolkit for how to rebuild our HRV.
Yes, thank goodness.
Right. These are specific steps to physically manipulate the nervous system back into a state of dynamic balance.
Yes, and the foundational pillar of these actionable steps is cardiovascular exercise. The data recommends a baseline of 150 minutes of moderate aerobic exercise per week.
Okay.
This can be walking, running, cycling, swimming, or even just taking a brisk walk immediately after meals to help manage blood glucose levels.
Now, wait a minute. We just established, not 5 minutes ago, that exercise is an acute stressor that creates micro tears and temporarily drops your HRV.
We did.
Why is the #1 recommendation for raising your long-term baseline HRV to go out and stress the body even more?
It is the biological principle of hormesis.
Hormesis.
Yes, hormesis is a phenomenon where a highly beneficial effect results from the exposure to low, controlled doses of an agent that is otherwise toxic or lethal at higher doses. In this case, controlled, moderate cardiovascular exercise trains the heart muscle to be more mechanically efficient.
Okay, I follow that.
But more importantly, it trains the autonomic nervous system to become highly efficient at toggling back and forth between sympathetic and parasympathetic states.
Ah, you're actively practicing the transition.
Exactly. You intentionally stress the system during the run, forcing the sympathetic nervous system to dominate, and then when you start running, you force the system to recover.
So you're exercising the nervous system itself.
Yes. Over time, your resting vagal tone, which is the baseline strength of your parasympathetic system, increases to handle the physical demands you are routinely placing on the body. Your heart becomes more efficient at pumping blood, meaning it doesn't have to beat as often at rest, and your baseline HRV goes up.
You are greasing the gears of the tug-of-war rope. You are making it easier for the body to pull the rope back to the rest and digest side once the workout is over.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Okay, that makes total sense. The next major rebuilder is sleep, which we touched on with the alcohol example, but Brecka gives us very specific environmental parameters here.
He does.
7 to 9 hours of quality sleep, and he outlines 5 tips for sleep management. Darken the room completely, Cool the room off. Practice breathing exercises in bed. Reduce screen time to zero. Wait, sorry. No ellipses. Reduce screen time to zero. And then there is this one. Unplug your electronics and keep them at least 6 feet away from your head.
Yes, the 6-foot rule.
Oh.
The environmental sleep hygiene rules in this analysis are entirely focused on removing autonomic triggers that prevent the onset of parasympathetic dominance.
So it's all about tricking the body into feeling safe.
Well, yeah. We know that light, particularly blue light emitted from LED screens, suppresses the pineal gland's production of melatonin, which keeps the sympathetic system engaged.
Right. Blue light is bad for sleep. We've heard that.
And a warm room prevents the natural core body temperature drop, which is usually about 1 to 2 degrees, that is biologically required to initiate deep, slow-wave sleep. But the 6-foot electronics rule is particularly interesting because it deals with the psychology of stress.
Yeah, what is the biology there? Is it about avoiding low-level electromagnetic fields from the lithium battery, or is it purely a psychological trick?
While there is ongoing nuanced debate in some scientific circles about the physiological impact of low-level electromagnetic fields from smartphones, the primary, immediate, and highly measurable benefit is psychophysiological.
Psychophysiological.
Right, it directly impacts your autonomic state through behavioral architecture. If your smartphone is within arm's reach on your nightstand, your brain maintains a subconscious low-level state of vigilance.
Because it knows the phone is right there.
Exactly. You are anticipating a text message, an email from your boss, a news alert. Your brain knows the portal to the outside world is sitting right next to your head.
So your sympathetic nervous system is still on standby. It's idling.
Precisely. You are keeping a tiny drip of cortisol flowing. By forcing the device 6 physical feet away, you are breaking the physical habit loop.
You can't just reach over and grab it.
Right. You cannot just roll over half asleep and begin doom scrolling. You are signaling to your nervous system through physical boundaries that the immediate environment is truly safe, the demands of the day are officially over, and it is time to transition from survive mode to repair mode.
It is about removing the threat of the digital lion from the bedroom.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay, I follow that. We also have nutrition and hydration focusing on whole foods, lean proteins, healthy fats. Brecka notes that as we get dehydrated, our HRV has a massive tendency to drop.
Oh, absolutely.
That seems fairly straightforward from a physics perspective, right?
Yeah.
If you lack water, your blood plasma volume drops, the blood literally becomes thicker and more viscous, the heart has to work mechanically harder to pump it, and systemic stress goes up.
It's pure plumbing at that point, yeah.
Right, but then the data takes a heart left turn into something that I absolutely have to push back on. Cold exposure.
Ah, yes. The increasingly popular integration of cold showers and ice baths.
Brecka states that a cold shower can be as little as 30 seconds of cold water exposure at the very end of your regular shower to actively stimulate the vagus nerve. Now, come on.
You're skeptical.
I am. Is 30 seconds of absolute freezing misery actually going to make a measurable biological difference in my autonomic nervous system? Or is this just the latest iteration of fitness torture designed to make us feel mentally tough?
It is certainly not torture. It is highly potent biological manipulation. And this is where we really have to talk about the vagus nerve, which is arguably the most important informational superhighway in your entire body.
Okay, sell me on the vagus nerve.
So the vagus nerve, also known as cranial nerve X, is the primary anatomical component of the parasympathetic nervous system. The word vagus actually comes from the Latin word for wandering, because this enormous nerve wanders from your brainstem down through your neck, branching out to interface with your vocal cords, your heart, your lungs, and all the way down into your digestive tract.
So it's basically connected to everything important.
Yes. It is the physical, biological cable that transmits the rest and digest signal to your vital organs.
So if the sympathetic system is the gas pedal, the vagus nerve is the physical brake pedal.
Exactly. Now, when you step into a cold shower, the immediate, instantaneous response is a massive sympathetic shock. You gasp for air. Your heart rate skyrockets. Your blood vessels rapidly constrict to push warm blood to your core organs.
Your body thinks it's dying.
Quite literally, your body thinks it is freezing to death. This is the fight-or-flight system maxing out. But because the stressors is controlled, and you consciously use your prefrontal cortex to force yourself to stay in the water and breathe slowly through the shock, you are demanding that your nervous system adapt rapidly.
You are fighting the panic.
Right. And the moment you step out of the cold water, the body initiates a massive, cascading parasympathetic rebound to dilate the blood vessels, stabilize your core temperature, and bring your heart rate back down.
The rebound. So it is like pulling a rubber band all the way back into maximum physiological tension and then letting it go so it snaps back into deep restorative relaxation.
Precisely. The thermal shock of the cold water forces the vagus nerve to fire intensely to calm the system down.
Yeah.
You are essentially taking the vagus nerve to the gym and making it lift extremely heavy weights. Even 30 seconds of this extreme thermal shock is enough to trigger the production of thermal shock proteins and initiate the adaptation response. It creates a robust spike in parasympathetic activity that lingers long after you have dried off, measurably boosting your baseline HRV for hours afterward.
That flips the script entirely. If a 30-second blast of cold water physically alters the tension of a nerve connecting my brain to my heart, we aren't just reacting to our environment, we can actively program our responses to it.
We have so much more control than we think.
Which brings us to the next section of Brecka's analysis, the mental and social rebuilders. The physical interventions, running, sleeping in a cold room, taking an ice bath, that makes intuitive sense to most people. But the data also dives heavily into the mind-body addiction. Breathwork is highlighted as a massive, non-negotiable component here.
Breathwork is perhaps the only manual override switch we have for the autonomic nervous system.
Manual override.
Yes, the autonomic system is, by definition, automatic. But respiration is unique because it straddles the line. It happens automatically while you sleep, but you can also consciously take control of it at any given moment. Brecka mentions diaphragmatic breathing, Wim Hof-style breathing, and specifically a technique of breathing out through a straw.
Breathing out through a straw, how does pursed breathing actually alter the electrical rhythm of the heart?
It comes down to the biomechanics of inhalation versus exhalation and a phenomenon known as respiratory sinus arrhythmia.
Okay, walk me through that.
When you inhale, your diaphragm moves down and your lungs expand. Right. This physical expansion actually creates negative intrathoracic pressure and lightly compresses the heart. The brain's baroreceptors sense this change in pressure and briefly, instantly speed up your heart rate to maintain optimal blood flow.
Just from breathing in?
Yes. Therefore, the physical act of inhalation is inherently sympathetic. It's a tiny microstressor. But when you exhale, the diaphragm moves up, the lungs deflate, the pressure on the heart is relieved, and the vagal brake is applied, which slows the heart down.
Exhaling slows it down.
Yes. Exhalation is inherently parasympathetic.
Okay, let's unpack this. So every single breath we take, thousands of times a day, is a micro tug of war. Breathe in, heart rate speeds up slightly, stress goes up slightly. Breathe out, heart rate slows down, relaxation kicks in slightly.
Exactly. That constant breath-by-breath fluctuation is the very foundation of heart rate variability.
That is wild.
Now, knowing this physiological fact, how do you manipulate the system? You intentionally extend the exhalation by breathing out through a literal straw or simply pursing your lips to create airway resistance. You are forced to drag out the exhale.
You make it take longer.
Right. If your inhale is a quick 2 seconds, but your resisted exhale takes 6 seconds, you are spending 3 times as long stimulating the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic system. It's a brilliant mechanical trick to lower your heart rate and boost your HRV. You are literally hacking your own neurology using simple air pressure.
That is just incredible. You are using the physics of your own lungs to massage your nervous system.
It's a great way to phrase it.
And Brecka also touches on biofeedback training devices, which tie directly into this. These are devices or apps that give you real-time visual data on your physiological state to help you learn how to control your stress responses.
Yeah, it's very effective.
It is like having a mirror for your nervous system so you can actually see the breathwork functioning in real time, watching your HRV climb as you extend your exhale. But here's where it gets really interesting to me. The analysis mentions social connections.
Yes.
It specifically states that engaging in meaningful social interactions robustly boosts HRV by enhancing emotional well-being and reducing systemic stress.
This is a profound, often overlooked point in the biohacking community. We tend to focus so heavily on supplements and gadgets that we forget our evolutionary biology.
We usually view hanging out with friends or having a deep, vulnerable conversation with the spouse as leisure. We think of it as something nice we do after the important, difficult work of the day is done. But the clinical data is suggesting that human connection is a literal, measurable medical intervention for your autonomic nervous system.
And evolutionary biology supports this entirely. Human beings are apex social primates. Our survival as a species did not depend on having the sharpest claws or the thickest fur or the fastest sprint speed.
No, we were pretty squishy compared to the lions.
Right. Our survival depended entirely on our cognitive ability to form cohesive, cooperative groups. From a purely biological perspective, isolation on the savanna equaled death. If you were separated from the tribe, you would be eaten by a predator or you would starve to death.
So we evolved to need people.
Exactly. Therefore, the human nervous system evolved to interpret social isolation as a severe, life-threatening stressor.
So the feeling of loneliness isn't just a sad emotion. It literally triggers the physiological fight-or-flight sympathetic response.
Yes, chronic loneliness is a state of chronic autonomic vigilance. The body is constantly on edge, pumping out cortisol because it subconsciously knows it has no backup. There's no one to keep watch while you sleep. Conversely, when we engage in meaningful social interaction, when we experience what psychologists call neuroception of safety, feeling seen, heard, and supported by our tribe, the brain releases powerful neuropeptides like oxytocin and endorphins.
The feel-good chemicals.
But oxytocin doesn't just make you feel warm and fuzzy. It physically binds to receptors on the heart and powerfully stimulates the vagus nerve, driving parasympathetic dominance. It signals to the body, you are safe. The tribe is here. The perimeter is secure. You can let your guard down. And your HRV immediately measurably rises.
That is incredibly powerful. Calling a friend is not just catching up on gossip. It is biologically down-regulating your nervous system and repairing your cardiovascular health.
It absolutely is.
So because HRV is so incredibly responsive to all these interventions, sleep hygiene, thermal stress, biomechanical breath work, social connection, it makes sense that the applications for this metric are expanding way beyond just individual biohackers trying to optimize their morning routine.
Oh, absolutely.
The data outlines how HRV is being utilized across massive professional industries right now.
The professional applications are expanding exponentially. In the realm of elite sports and fitness, professional athletes have been utilizing this data for years. They do not just guess how hard they should train on any given Tuesday based on a predetermined spreadsheet.
Right. They look at the data.
They wake up, they check their morning HRV baseline, and if the number is significantly suppressed, indicating that their central nervous system has not recovered from Monday's heavy workout, they will pivot.
They just change the plan.
Yeah, they will scrap the heavy lifting, knowing they are at a high risk for injury, and they will do light mobility or zone 2 cardio instead. It gives them an objective mathematical sense of their readiness to re-stress the body.
It is taking the ego out of training. The biological data dictates the physical effort.
Precisely. You cannot outwill a fatigued nervous system. But moving beyond athletics, the clinical and therapeutic applications are where HRV truly shines. Brecka notes that mental health therapists and forward-thinking psychologists are using HRV and biofeedback in session with patients managing severe anxiety and depression.
In the actual therapy session.
Yes. Instead of just talking about anxiety as an abstract, overwhelming feeling, the therapist can show the patient the physiological reality of their anxiety on a screen.
They can see the numbers tanking.
Right. And then, crucially, they can teach the patient the extended exhalation breathing techniques we just discussed and show them in real time the line on the graph moving. It shows the patient they have the actual biological power to shift their own state. It profoundly empowers the patient.
It makes the invisible monster visible
Yeah.
and then shows you the weapon to defeat it. That's beautiful. And for chronic disease management, doctors are actively monitoring HRV in patients with conditions like heart disease and diabetes to gauge autonomic function and tailor pharmaceutical treatments.
Yes, it's becoming a standard tool.
That makes total sense. But then we hit the final application mentioned in the analysis, and I want to look closely at this one. Corporate wellness.
Ah, yes. The integration of biometrics into the workplace.
The data suggests that HRV monitoring can be a part of a corporate wellness program to help employees manage stress and improve their overall health. Now look, it is fantastic that athletes use this to win gold medals, and it is incredible that doctors use it to save lives. But if workplace wellness programs start actively tracking the autonomic nervous system data of their employees, we have to talk about the data privacy implications.
This raises an important question, and the intersection of biometric data and corporate oversight is undoubtedly a complex frontier. If we look strictly at the mechanics of autonomic monitoring in a population, there are two sides to the coin.
Right, what's the good side?
On one hand, objective data can validate the reality of workplace burnout. If a company aggregates strictly anonymized HRV data and clearly sees that the entire marketing department's collective HRV plummets every Thursday, maybe they realize that the Thursday afternoon reporting deadline is biologically destructive to their workforce.
So they can change the environment.
Right, they restructure the workflow. It forces companies to treat stress as a quantifiable physiological reality rather than just a subjective complaint.
Right, making the invisible stress visible to management. Look, the data shows our current policies are actively degrading the cardiovascular resilience of our team.
Exactly. However, the flip side revolves entirely around the architecture of data privacy. If the biometric data is not strictly anonymized and firewalled from human resources, the mechanics of the monitoring become highly problematic.
Because they could use it against you.
Right. An employer could potentially see that a specific employee's HRV is chronically suppressed, assume they are biologically overwhelmed or dealing with hidden health issues, and subconsciously pass them over for a high-stress promotion, assuming they don't have the physiological resilience to handle the responsibility.
Wow, biological discrimination.
Yes. As optical sensors and wearable technology become ubiquitous in daily life, the structural frameworks around who owns that biometric data and how it can be legally utilized in a corporate setting will have to evolve very rapidly.
It is the ultimate double-edged sword of the data age. It gives us incredible power to heal and optimize, but it also strips away the privacy of our internal biological state.
It's a conversation we have to start having.
Okay, let's zoom out and synthesize this incredible physiological journey we've been on. Based on the deep science we've unpacked today, it is abundantly clear that heart rate variability is not just some passing fitness fad for ultramarathoners.
Not at all.
It is the ultimate language of the human nervous system. It is the real-time, millisecond by millisecond translation of the hidden war between your systemic stress and your biological peace.
It is, without a doubt, the most honest metric your body produces. You can lie to yourself about how stressed you are at work. You can tell your friends and family you are doing fine.
You can just pretend.
Right, you can drink a double espresso and psychologically push through the fatigue, but you cannot lie to your autonomic nervous system. The microscopic intervals between your heartbeats will always invariably reveal the objective truth about your physiological ledger.
And what I want you, the listener, to take away from this is that you hold the pen that writes that ledger. You have agency. Every single micro-choice you make today is a direct vote in this biological election.
Beautifully said.
Choosing to drink a glass of water instead of that second cup of coffee, taking a 30-second blast of cold water at the end of your shower to shock your vagus nerve, putting your smartphone 6 feet away from your bed tonight to break the cycle of vigilance.
Breathing out through pursed lips.
Yes, breathing out through pursed lips for 2 extra seconds. Calling a friend you haven't spoken to in months to trigger that release of oxytocin. Every single one of these actions is a direct, measurable vote for your parasympathetic nervous system. It is a vote for your own resilience.
It's profound agency. We are not just passive passengers trapped inside our bodies at the mercy of our environment. Through these specific biological interventions, we have our hands on the levers that control the entire machine.
We started this deep dive talking about a grandfather clock. We talked about how we inherently expect our hearts to tick with the rigid, mechanical, unyielding perfection of a metronome.
The illusion.
Right, the illusion. What the science has shown us today is that perfect regularity is actually a sign of a system that is terrified, bracing for impact, and entirely incapable of adapting to the beautiful, chaotic rhythm of reality. Your body is not a machine. It is a dynamic, reactive ecosystem. And a healthy ecosystem is constantly changing, constantly adapting, and constantly dancing in the space between the beats. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep exploring the data, but never forget to feel the rhythm for yourself.
If I can leave you with one final thought to mull over as you go about your day, it builds on everything we've just discussed about the power of this technology. We now have these incredible hyper-accurate optical sensors strapped to our wrists, measuring our micro-stressors down to the millisecond.
Right.
But if a wearable device has to tell us that we are in a state of chronic stress before our conscious minds are even willing to admit it, are we losing our own internal self-awareness? As we get better and better at reading the algorithmic data on our wrists, we must pause and ask ourselves, are we forgetting how to actually feel and read the signals inside our own bodies?